أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون صدق الله العلي العظيم. It was not but one shout, and immediately they were extinguished. How regretful for the servants! There did not come to them any messenger, except that they used to ridicule him.
محمد وآل محمد صلوات اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. زندہ سے جب رہا ہوئے سادات کربلا تمہارے لپٹ کے قبر سکینہ پہ دی صدا اٹھو سکینہ چلے کربلا اٹھو سکینہ چلے کربلا. چھوٹی سی تربت پیمانے کہا اٹھو سکینہ چلے کربلا. زندہ سے جاتا ہے اب قافلہ اٹھو سکینہ چلے کربلا. مجھے شاہزادی تمہاری قسم نہ رکھوں گی زندہ سے باہر قدم. سفر کی اب ہوتی ہے تیاریاں ہماری میں بیٹھے ہے اہل حرم. قربت کا میری تمہیں واسطہ اٹھو سکینہ چلے کربلا. وہ پہلے کی جیسی تو غربت نہیں اے بی بی ہماری وہ حالت نہیں. تمہیں شامیوں سے اب اے میری جان کفن مانگنے کی ضرورت نہیں. لو مل گئی ہے تمہاری رضا اٹھو سکینہ چلے کربلا. مجھے یاد اصغر کی ہے بے کسی لحد سے وہ میت نکالی گئی. اکیلے میں رہنے نہ دوں گی तुम्हें भरोसा नहीं शामियों का कोई रहते हैं चारों तरफ अश्किया उठो सकीना चले करबला उठो सकीना चले करबला बर मोहम्मद व आले मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मुहम्मद व आले मुहम्मद.
Jazakallah, Brother Rafjani, for the beautiful recitation. Inshallah, we will continue our program with speech by Shaykh Jafar Muhibullah. Please help me invite him with a loud salawat.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم به نستعين الحمد لله الذي جعل الحمد مفتاحا لذكره وسببا للمزيد من فضله ودليلا على آلائه وعظمته ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين أرواحنا له فداء أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فأي الفريقين أحق بالأمن إن كنتم تعلمون الذين آمنوا ولم يلبسوا إيمانهم بظلم أولئك لهم الأمن وهم مهتدون صدق الله علي العظيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First and foremost, I give my condolences to each of you on the occasion which we are commemorating, that is the Shahadat of Imam Hasan ibn Ali al-Askari alayhi salatu wassalam. When we commemorate and remember the lives of our Imams alayhi salatu wassalam, one of the things that stands out when we examine their lives is that each and every Imam, they had a mission that was particular to their time, and therefore they guided the Ummah, they guided mankind, and particularly their Shia, according to that mission that they had for their time. We look at the life of Imam Hasan al-Askari, which, of course, we know that much of his life was spent in and out of prison of the Abbasid government. They also knew of the prophecy that Imam al-Hujjah, Jafar al-Sharif, Imam al-Zaman, that he will come, and when the Imam is born, the Imam will establish justice in the world as it has been filled with injustice. So the Abbasids, they were concerned about the birth of Imam Zaman, this Hujjah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who will bring about justice and rid the world of injustice. Pretty much similar to the worry and concern that Fir'aun had with regards to the birth of the Prophet Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. So Imam Hasan al-Askari alayhi salatu wasalam, his mission on one part was to ensure the protection of his son Imam al-Hujjah alayhi salatu wasalam wa Jafar al-Sharif, but also to guide the Ummah and prepare them for that moment when the Imam Zaman, he will come, but that moment when the Imam will come will also be cloaked through the occultation, a minor occultation and a major occultation. So the Imam was to prepare the Ummah for that, and particularly to prepare the Shia with regards to these events. One of the things that we find in this regard is during the time of Imam Hasan Askari, it was very important to distinguish who exactly were the Shia of the Ahlul Bayt, who were following the Imam. Because by the time that Imam Hasan Askari, he assumed the role as the Imam, the 11th Imam. There were many different factions that people were following. And if we only look at those who were claiming to be the followers of Ahlul Bayt, alayhim, there were the Zaydiyas, we had the Ismailis, the Idrisis, the Waqifis. So you had all of these various groups. So the Imam, he had to prepare at least anyone who claimed that they were following the Ahlul Bayt for the true coming of Imam al-Hujjah, Imam al-Zamana, Jafar al-Sharif, and what they would have to do in order to follow the path of the Imam. Thus we find one of the narrations that is related to Imam Hasan Askari alayhi hafizahullah, and this can be found in the tafsir of Imam Hasan Askari with regards to verse 30 of Surah Ash-Shura, when the Imam, he talks about the Shia, who the Shia were, as one person had asked Imam Hasan Askari, and so he narrated the event where some Shia, some followers came to Imam Rida alayhi wasallam. Imam Hasan Askari, he was known as Ibn al-Rida. He was known to be the son of his grandfather, Imam Rida alayhi wasallam. So Imam Hasan Askari related this story. He says a group of people came to Imam Rida, and this was particularly after Imam Rida alayhi wasallam went to Khurasan, and he was the wazir or the wali of Ma'mun. So they came to Imam Rida. And as they came to Imam Rida, he delayed his meeting with him. According to the narration, the meeting was delayed for about 2 months. And so finally, when these people, they came, after 2 months, they told the servant who was coming forth to as the intermediary between Imam Rida and these individuals, they told the servant, says, tell Imam Rida that we are Shia to Ali, that we are the Shias of his grandfather, Imam Ali alayhi wasallam. So when they came to Imam Rida to explain about their troubles and their harassment by the enemies, meaning that the government of Ma'mun was putting pressure on them, so they were asking that, well, the Imam, can he not protect them, that we are the Shia of Ali? So Imam Rida alayhi wasallam, he explained to them, or he said these words to him. He says, وَيْحَكُمْ إنما شيعة أمير المؤمنين الحسن والحسين وسلمان وأبو ذر ومقداد وعمار ومحمد بن أبي بكر. He said, woe be unto you that you're claiming to be among the Shia of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi wasallam. He says, when the Shia of Amir al-Mu'mineen were al-Hasan, meaning Imam al-Hasan, Imam Hussein alayhi wasallam, and Salman, Abu Dhar, Miqdad, Amma Yasir, and Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr. He says, these are the Shia of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Then Imam Rida gives them the reason why he considers them to be the Shia of Amir al-Mu'mineen. In fact, this is a reasoning which we find all of the Imams alayhim wasallam that they would indicate to. Because there's a difference that, again, we may claim that we are the Shia of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam, or any of the Imams, that this is our claim, this is our position, that this is the way of life that we're following. But then there's a categorization that the Imams themselves, alayhim salatu wasalam, where they say, yes, this person is among our Shia. Or they would say, no, this person is among our muhibbeen. That yes, they like us, they have love for us, but our Shia is of a different caliber. So why does Imam Rida alayhi salatu consider these folks among his Shia? He says, الَّذِينَ لَمْ يُخَالِفُوا شَيْئًا مِنْ أَوَامِرِ. That these individuals, these folks meaning Imam Hasan, Imam Hussein, Salman Farsi, Abu Dhar, Miqdad, Amma Yasir, and Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr, that they never went against the command of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. And of course, Imam Rida alayhi salatu wasalam, he's giving these folks as examples. Yes, perhaps there were others as well, but he distinctly points out these folks as the Shia of Imam Ali. And of course, there's no question about Imam Hasan, Imam Hussein, alayhim, that if Amir al-Mu'mineen gives them a command, that they will follow it. Imam Hasan, Imam Hussein are ma'soom, but when we look at the others, but we don't consider them, at least according to our aqidah, as ma'soom, that we have to believe in their isma, their infallibility. Salman, Abu Dhar, Miqdad, Amma Yasir, Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr. Nonetheless, when we look at their lifestyle and we look at the way they interacted with their imam, then we find that yes, they did not disobey the command of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi wasalam. Their relationship with their imam was such that if the imam commanded them to do something, then this is what they did. With regards to Salman, for example, we find that in the Battle of Khaybar, and this is a very interesting story about the life of Salman, that of course the Battle of Khaybar, in the initial part of that battle, Imam Ali alayhi wasallam, he did not go to the battlefront because of an ailment that he had in his eyes. But when no one could take the fort of Khaybar, the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said he will send for someone who Allah loves, and that person loves Allah and His Messenger. And of course, the Messenger and Allah loves this person. And this was Imam Ali. Salman Farsi, he narrates that he was with Imam Ali when the Messenger came to Medina, back to Medina from the battlefront, and requested that Imam Ali come to the Prophet. Imam Ali told the messengers, as you have fulfilled your duty, there's no need for you to go back. But then Imam Ali, he looked towards Salman Farsi. He says, do you want to come with me to the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? And Salman said, yes. So at that point, Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasallam, he told Salman, he says, then you walk in my footsteps and you do not go one step to the right or a half a step or even just a micro step to the right or the left, or else you will be destroyed. And Salman Farsi said, okay, I'll do this. And so Salman Farsi, he narrates, he says that wherever Imam Ali, he put his foot, and when he removed his foot to step forward, he says, I made sure that I put my foot in the footprint of Amir al-Mu'mineen, not to the left or not to the right. And with this, Salman Farsi, he said, and in 3 footsteps, we were beside Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yes, this is an event of Tayrul Arud, or riding upon the wings of the angels, that many of the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saints have. But Salman Farsi, the point that I want to make is that he placed his footsteps in the footsteps of Imam Ali, as he stated, making sure that he followed Imam Ali exactly. And there are other cases where Salman Farsi, he was commanded by Imam Ali alayhi wasallam to do something, and we see that with utmost obedience, Salman Farsi, he obeyed Imam Ali alayhi wasallam. Abu Dhar, another very good example, Abu Dhar, who the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that he will live by his tongue and he would die by his tongue. And this is because of the truthfulness of Abu Dhar. That when the right of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali bin Abi Talib alayhi were usurped, Abu Dhar did not remain silent. He reminded everyone of their duty and their responsibility to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that the Prophet, he appointed Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali bin Abi Talib as the Khalifa, as his wasi, as the one who would lead the Ummah after him. And because of that, Abu Dhar, he was exiled. He did not hold his tongue. And likewise, the other examples, Miqdad, Amma Yasir, Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr, that all of them, that they were very firm in their obedience of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim, and also trying to shape their lives after the lives of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad alayhim. So therefore, we see that the Shia of the Ahlul Bayt are such individuals. And when those folks, they came to Imam Rida alayhi complaining about the harassment, complaining about the enemies, as they stated, the enemies of the Shia, Imam Rida alayhi he responded to them. He says, وَمَا أَصَابَكُم مِّن مُصِيبَةٍ فَبِمَا كَسَبَتْ أَيْدِيكُمْ وَيَعْفُو عَنْ كَثِيرٍ. He says that the pressure, the calamity that you're facing, he says, is because of yourselves. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he forgives much. In other words, what Imam Rida alayhi was pointing out, he says that you claim to be the Shia of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali bin Abi Talib alayhi, yet your actions are not like the actions of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And because your actions are not like the actions of Amir al-Mu'mineen, the injustice or the calamity or the pressure, the harassment that you're facing is because of your own hands, because of your own doing. And this is a very interesting perspective that Imam Rida alayhi he is presenting. Because of course we know that the enemies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we know that those folks who were the enemies of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim, yes, they harassed the Ahlul Bayt. They unrightfully and unjustly, they martyred the Ahlul Bayt alayhim. In fact, this is the same verse that Yazid, he had used in his court, trying to say that, well, the reason why Imam Hussein alayhi was murdered by my army, or they were killed, he was killed by my army. He says, وَمَا أَصَابَكُم مِّن مُصِيبَةٍ فَبِمَا كَسَبَتْ أَيْدِيكُم. He says, well, he rose up against me. When this is not the case. As Imam Hasan Askari alayhi, he states that, yes, there are folks within the or at least they claim that they were following the Quran. They claim that they were following the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He says, but these folks, they repel truth with falsehood, يعني دفع الحق بالباطل, because of their jealousy. So the harassment that the Ahlul Bayt alayhim that they saw, it was not because they were acting, they weren't acting in accordance with the Quran or in accordance with the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It was because they were acting according to the Quran 100%, and because they were acting according to the Sirat of Rasulullah 100%. And so it was very clear during the time of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim wasalam that who was upholding the principles of justice, who were upholding the principles of the Quran, who were upholding the principles of the lifestyle of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And because of that, these individuals, they wanted to get rid of the Ahlul Bayt. Whereas what Imam Rida alayhi wasallam was pointing out, that you are claiming to be among the Shia of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. but you're not following their example 100%. And therefore, the calamities that befall you, the harassment that is befalling you, is not because of the way you're acting on the basis of the sirat of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad, but because you're outside of that fold. Yes, you may be lovers of Ahlul Bayt, but you're not following their seerah, and so therefore you're facing pressures. So what is this command of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad? And what's particularly of interest to us now is those commands of Imam Hasan al-Askari alayhi salatu wasalam, because it was his responsibility and his duty and his time to prepare those Shia, to prepare those folks who said that they follow Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad, to live in a time in which the Imam of their time, Imam Zaman, Jafar Sharif, he will be absent. He will be in a occultation. So we see that in the life of Imam Hasan al-Askari, there were a few things that he commanded. Of course, we will not be able to go over all of the things he's commanded, but just a few of the things. And one of those things is with regards to the role of women in that time of occultation, the time in which there was no access to Imam Zaman, Jafar Sharif. So one of the first commands that the Imam he had made, similar to his grandfather Imam Hussein alayhi salam, who had appointed Zainab salam alayha to be the one who is at the forefront of guiding the caravan after Imam Hussein alayhi salam, after the Shuhada had sacrificed their lives, and now the caravan has been taken from place to place. So Zainab salam alayha, she was like the one who was protecting Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam. She was the one who people, they referred to. And of course, yeah, she was under the guidance of Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam, but yet she was at the forefront. In the same way, Imam Hasan al-Askari alayhi salam, he said, refer to Jadda. And Jadda was the grandmother of Imam Zaman alayhi salam, the mother of Imam Hasan al-Askari, Susan, but the grandmother of Imam Zaman Jafar Sharif. That she was one that in that time of early period of occultation, that she was being referred to. And some of the Shia, when they would come and they were looking for the Imam of their time, then the family members, the Ahlul Bayt, they said, well, refer to Jadda, go to her. If you have a question, you ask her. So meaning that, yes, women had a role during that time of the occultation, that minor part of the occultation. The second command that we see from among the commands of Imam Hasan al-Askari alayhi salam is with regards to the actions of those who are the Shia of Muhammad wa Muhammad and their interactions. So one of the famous hadith that we have from Imam Hasan al-Askari, and part of it parallels with the hadith from Imam Jafar al-Sadiq alayhi salam, as well as our other Imam alayhi salam, where the Imam, he stated, ittaqullaha wa kunu zaynan wa la takunu shaynan. Imam Hasan al-Askari, he says, be conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and be an ornament of beauty for Ahlul Bayt. وَكُونُوا زَيْنًا وَلَا تَكُونُوا شَيْنًا. And this is something that we are perhaps very familiar with from the words of Ahlul Bayt. But then the Imam Hasan al-Askari alayhi he gives a little bit more explanation. What does it mean to be an ornament of beauty for Ahlul Bayt alayhi? He says, حَبِّبُونَا إِلَى النَّاسِ وَلَا تُبَغِّضُونَا جروا إلينا كل مودة وادفعوا عنا كل قبيح. So Imam Hasan Askari alayhi, when he says, be that ornament of beauty for us, he explains, he says, حببونا إلى الناس. That cause us to be beloved in the eyes of people. In other words, that when you're acting, when you're interacting, you're making a claim. We're all making this claim that, oh, we are the Shia of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We are the Shia of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib. So therefore, from our actions, it should show. That from our actions, our lifestyle, and the way that we live, it should attract people towards that. We see that we live by the principles of La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, that we live by the principles of justice, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He commands to in the Quran, that we live by those very principles that the Prophet, he lived by the very principles that the Ahlul Bayt alayhim wasalam, they live by. And by living this lifestyle, yes, people will be attracted towards that. If they're looking for truth, if they're looking for haqq, then we should represent that. And not be like those folks that Imam Rida alayhi wasalam, he says, Wayhakum. He reprimanded them for making their claim, that they were not living like Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. And Imam, he says, وَلَا تُبَغِّضُونَ, and do not make us look bad or be the center of people's displeasure. Meaning that if we're doing something and it's not truly representing the Ahlul Bayt alayhim wasalam, we should abstain from this. It says, وَجَرُّوا إِلَيْنَا كُلَّ مَوَدَّةٍ, and draw towards us the love of everyone. And this is exactly what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He commanded to her. No Muslim can deny this. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He told the Prophet that there's no ajr, there's no reward, there's no compensation for this final revelation and guidance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has delivered to mankind, إِلَّا مَوَدَّةً فِي الْقُرْبَى. So Imam Hasan al-Askari alayhi is saying that through your actions and through the way that you're carrying yourselves, remind people of this. جَرُّوا إِلَيْنَا كُلَّ مَوَدَّةٍ, that draw towards us the love of people. وَادْفَعُوا عَنَّا كُلَّ قَبِيحٍ, and through your actions, then repel all which is vile, all which is wicked, all which is evil. This is what the Imam is commanding towards. This is how, on one hand, we can be that ornament of beauty for Ahlul Bayt alayhim wasalam, kunu zaynan wala takunu shaynan, and we're not that symbol of, you could say, disrespect, or that symbol of hatred towards Muhammad wa al Muhammad, that people refuse, or through our actions, it blocks people from even coming to understand the Ahlul Bayt alayhim wasalam. Because if they say, oh, well, if this is the follower of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, and our actions are not correct, our actions are not like Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, then we block them from the message of the Quran, the message of the Prophet of Allah, the message of Ahlul Bayt alayhim wasalam. This is the meaning of kunu zaynan lana wa la takunu shaynan lana. Among those things which we also find Imam Hasan al-Askari alayhi wasalam particularly commanding to, and this is a very interesting aspect, and this is how we interact with others. Yes, our actions on one hand, kunu zaynan lana wa la takunu shaynan lana, meaning that even if we're not speaking with someone, even if we're doing as Imam Ali alayhi wasalam, he says, Udu'u ila al-haq bighayri alsinatikum. So call towards truth even without your tongues, through your own actions, through the way that you live. But then at one point, without a doubt, we have to interact with people. And when we interact with them, as Imam Hasan Askari alayhi wasalam, he referred to this verse. He says, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He states, وَقُولُوا لِلنَّاسِ حُسْنًا. So say to people good, or speak in a decent way to people. So Imam Hasan Askari, he said that قُولُوا لِلنَّاسِ كُلِّهِمْ حُسْنًا. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is referring to. He says, speak kindly to everyone. Or in other words, interact with each person with kindness. مُؤْمِنِهُمْ مُؤْمِنِهِمْ وَمُخَالِفِهِمْ. Imam Hasan Askari, he says, it doesn't make a difference that who this person is. If that person's a mu'min or if that person is mukhalif. And what the Imam is talking about is that if that person, not simply mukhalif of Islam, yeah, that person could be mukhalif with Islam, meaning that person that you're speaking kindly to or you're interacting with kindness could be someone who is a believer or not a believer, but someone who also follows Ahlul Bayt or does not follow Ahlul Bayt, alayhim afsalatu wasalam. This is why the Imam, he says, kullihim, everyone, without any distinction of who that person is, whether that person is a believer or not a believer, whether that person follows Ahlul Bayt or does not follow the Ahlul Bayt, alayhim afsalatu wasalam. And this is one of the things that we see and we recognize in the actions of the Ahlul Bayt, alayhim afsalatu wasalam. From the Prophet all the way to Imam Hasan Askari and also Imam Jafar al-Sharif. From the lifestyle of the Prophet, and this is one of the very famous narrations regarding Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That every morning when the Prophet, he walked by this certain house in Medina, this elder lady would always throw trash on his head. This Jewish lady. And one day this didn't happen. So the Prophet was concerned. And of course, when she did this, the Prophet never yelled at her, no. But the day that she stopped, the Prophet got concerned. He went and he visited. He realized that she was sick. And she was so surprised. She was like, I'm the person who every day I was dumping trash on your head. I was treating you bad. But yet you return kindness to me. And she realized that then she says, yes, you are a prophet of Allah. And she said of Shahada, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. In so many cases, we find the exact same thing because of the interaction of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim afsalatu wasalam. Imam Hasan Askari alayhi afsalatu wasalam himself, who was in and out of prison, kept and held in and out of prison. A few of his guards it was stated that these persons, they did not pray, they did not fast, and they were particularly appointed to guard the Imam and to harass Imam Hasan al-Askari, to put pressure on him. But to the Abbasids' surprise, to the government's surprise, they found that, oh, these folks, now they are praying and they're fasting. And when they were questioned that, what's wrong with you? What has happened to you? We place Imam Hasan al-Askari, we place Hasan ibn Ali والسلام, under your watch so that you can put pressure on him. Because we knew that you were folks who didn't have any care for deen. But now you're praying, now you're fasting. And their response, they were like, well, what could we do with this person, meaning Imam Hasan Askari? What can we do that each and every time we went to him, he was praying or he was fasting? Throughout the night he was praying, and throughout the day he was fasting and engaged in ibadah. So in other words, the lifestyle of Imam Hasan Askari, it had an effect. As he says, as the Imam himself, he stated, and he's not just making this statement, but he himself, he practices Jarru ilayna kulla mawadda, that he pulled towards himself, and not simply himself. When he's pulling towards himself, he's pulling towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Imam Hasan Askari is among those leaders, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he states, وَجَعَلْنَاهُمْ أَئِمَّةً يَهْدُونَ بِأَمْرِنَا, that these are imams, these are leaders, these are guys who guide by the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, are placing people in line with the Quran, in line with the lifestyle of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Imam Hasan Askari, he's teaching us as well. He says, how do you do this? He says, speak kindly with everyone. مؤمنهم ومخالفهم. He says, أما المؤمنون فيبسطوا لهم وجهه. He says, and when you act and interact with kindness with the believer, the mu'min, he says, then you will put a smile on his face. And that placing a smile on the face of the believer, as we know from the traditions of Ahlul Bayt, this is no min al-ibadah. This is a type of ibadah that you are making the believer happy. وَأَمَّا الْمُخَالِفُونَ, Imam Hasan Askari, he says, well, if you're acting or interacting kindly or speaking kindly to the mukhalif, those people who they disagree with Ahlul Bayt, or they disagree with Islam. فَيُكَلِّمُهُمْ بِإِجْرَابِهِمْ إِلَى الْإِيمَانِ. When you're speaking in this way, you're speaking with kindness, you're in the best of manner. This is one of the effects that may come about, is that you towards belief. Because that belief that you have in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the command of Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, this will draw them near to this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is the one who's commanding in the Quran, وَقُولُوا لِلنَّاسِ حُسْنًا. He says, say to people, speak with people, interact with them in the best of manners. This is your deen. He says, and when people see this, you draw them towards Iman. فَإِنْ اسْتَتَرَ مِنْ ذَلِكَ بِكَفِّ شُرُورِهِمْ عَنْ نَفْسِ. And if they are not drawn towards Iman, another effect may happen. Is at the very least, what may happen if they don't come into the folds of Islam, they don't believe the way you believe, then perhaps that will keep them from harassing you, oppressing you, because there will be no excuse for them to do that. And if they did, it would be openly unjust. It will be very clear that they're being unjust. Why? Because people will see that, well, this person only interacted in the best of manners with people. So the person who is opposed to them, the person who may harm them, then what excuse did they have? And this is something we also see with regards to Imam Hussein alayhi salatu. If we read the history, of course, in our case, it is very clear. But any Muslim who goes and who reads the history, reads the documentation, reads even the fatwa, the rulings of the scholars, and I'm not speaking about scholars who follow Muhammad wa al-Muhammad, even those who are considered, no, these are not followers of Ahlul Bayt. If you read the fatwas from the 10th century, 9th, 10th century, they said that this was a despicable act. The famous scholar Suyuti himself, when he writes about the history of the Khulafa, what he states, he says, may Allah curse anyone who has killed and harmed Hussein ibn Ali alayhi wasallam, the master of the youth of paradise, Sayyid Shabab Ahl Jannah. And this is not someone who claims, oh, I'm Shia of Ali, or Shia of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. So by interacting in the best of manners with people, even those who disagree with you, one of the things is that you will hold back their animosity against you. And if they come forth with animosity and injustice, it will be clearly marked as injustice. The third effect, as Imam Hasan Askari, he points out, he says, وَإِنْ إِخْوَانِهِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Not only will you safeguard yourself from harassment and pressure and injustice, that you will also safeguard your believer brother, your brother and sister in Islam, in faith and Iman, that very person who is on the same path that you're on. That by interacting in the best of manner. And this is because people will see that, oh, well, this is the action of those who follow Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And if they come across someone who they don't know, but they realize that they follow Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, then they will say, oh, well, their actions at least should be the same. But the opposite is also true. That when we are not acting according to the sirat of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdalus wasalam, and it could be just a small group. They say, oh, we're the Shia of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. But then their actions do not reflect that of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdalus wasalam. Then the others who see their actions, whenever they encounter someone who makes that claim that, oh, we are the Shia of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, what will come to the forefront of their mind is the way those folks who are acting out of character of the Ahlul Bayt. They say, oh, if the Shia of Ali Muhammad are the ones who do this and do that, and they speak this way, they talk this way, then these folks who are saying that they're also the Shia of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad alayhim afdalus wasalam, well, I just encountered them. Then also they're going to be the ones who acts this way, who speaks this way, who interacts this way. Subhanallah, this is the advice of the Ahlul Bayt. The advice of Ahlul Bayt, which is based on, again, the Quran. And this is one of the ways that we understand that what is correct from among the traditions, that if it is connected and it's agreeing with the Quran, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He commanded, وَقُولُوا لِلنَّاسِ حُسْنًا. And Imam Hasan Askari, he says that this is the way that one who is among the Shia of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, that they will interact. And by interacting that way, you're drawing people towards the message of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. You're drawing people towards that message of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, which is the message of the Quran, which is in line and parallels with the message of the Quran. And those folks, as we mentioned, that if through your action, through your interaction, in the best of manners, those interactions, which is like the actions of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdalus wasalam, if they still are not drawn towards truth, as Imam Hasan Askari himself, alayhi afdalus wasalam, he was very clear about it. He says, yes, some people will not be drawn towards truth. وَيَدْفَعُ الْحَقَّ بِالْبَاطِلِ مِنْ أَجْلِ الْحَسَدِ. He says, and they will place in front of truth falsehood because of their hasad, because of their jealousy, because of their greed for power, as we see during the time of Imam Hasan al-Askari. That the Abbasid government, under which Imam Hasan al-Askari lived, in the government of Mu'tamid, that they wanted to maintain their power, and because of this, Imam Hasan al-Askari was kept under watch 24/7, as we mentioned. And the guards who were drawn in to Iman and were turned back to faith because of the actions of Imam Hasan al-Askari, that these people were removed from being the guards of Imam Hasan al-Askari. They were removed, and they were constantly, the Abbasid government were constantly looking for someone who would apply the most harshest pressure against Imam Hasan al-Askari. One of those incidents is when one of the guards, he kept some lions. He kept them as pets. So one day he said, well, we'll not feed them for a while, and we'll put Hasan ibn Ali among them, hoping that the lions will eat Imam Hasan al-Askari. They will dismember him. But when he did so, he saw that coming after a couple of days, he saw that Imam Hasan al-Askari was engaged in a ibadah, and the lions were all sitting around the Imam. But as time went on and the pressure on Imam Hasan al-Askari was becoming more difficult, more harsh, we see that one case where the food was given to Imam Hasan al-Askari and it was poisoned. One of the Shia of Imam Hasan al-Askari by the name of Abu al-Adyan, he was someone who was narrating what happened to the Imam at the end of his life. So after the Imam was poisoned, and Abu Adyan, he came to Imam Hasan al-Askari as he would usually do to take any of the messages from Imam Hasan al-Askari to deliver them to people, that folks who were asking questions from Imam Hasan al-Askari, and the Imam, he would write his letters, and in response to those who wrote questions to Imam Hasan al-Askari, Abu Adyan, he would carry them around. And so in one moment, Imam Hasan al-Askari, he told Abu Adyan, he said that, take these letters, deliver them to the Shia, deliver them to the people, and you will probably get some responses from those folks. He says, but by the time you come back, you will find me on my deathbed. To be exact, he said, you will find me on the place where my body will be washed. And so Abu Adyan, he began to say that, Ya Mawla, that what will happen? He says, I will be martyred. And so Abu Adyan, he says, so then what should I do? Imam Hasan al-Askari, he says that when you come back on the 15th day, he says, you will find one who will come forth to wash my body, to make the prayer over my body. He says, this will be the Qa'im. This is the Hujjah after me. He says, he will request you for those letters. So Abu al-Adyan, he left, he went, and he distributed the letters, received their answers, and on the 15th day, as Imam Hasan al-Askari alayhi he had told him, he had returned to Samarra, and he saw that the body of Imam Hasan al-Askari was upon the Maghsal, the place where the body was being washed. He says, as he returned, Jafar ibn Ali, the brother of Imam Hasan al-Askari, was standing on the outside as well. The Shia were around on the outside, and they were crying, Wa Imama, Wa Masmuma, that, or our Imam, Wa Sayyida. They were crying and wailing for Imam Hasan al-Askari. Some had stated that the Imam, he had passed away in a state of loneliness, that yes, he was poisoned and he was there in his home for some time. He was there under watch and under guard, and when he passed away, that no one was around him. This was similar, as one of the persons was saying, similar to what happened to his grandfather, Imam al-Hussein. But of course, Imam Hussein, his body had been shot with arrows and spears, and he had been beheaded. They said the only difference between the two is that Imam Hasan al-Askari, that his body was not full of arrows, his body was not full of wounds from being struck by the sword or spears, and his head was not decapitated from his body, but nonetheless that he was alone, like his grandfather, Imam al-Hussein. Abu al-Adyan, he said that as he sat back and he watched After the body of Imam Hasan Askari was shrouded, they said Jafar ibn Ali, the brother of Imam Hasan Askari, he came forth to pray upon the body of Imam Hasan al-Askari as he raised his hands to make the takbir. Then a young boy entered into the room, and when Jafar, he saw this young boy, he stepped back. And people were wondering that why is the brother of Imam Hasan, the elder of the family, why is he moving away? And this young boy is coming forth. Abu Adiyan, he realized that this was the Imam of the time. This is the Imam al-Hujjah. Ahsan lak al-aza ya mawla. Today we should be giving our condolences to Imam al-Zaman Jafar al-Sharif. Ahsan lak al-aza ya mawla biwalidika al-Hasan ibn Ali al-Askari. That, oh Mawla, oh Imam Zaman, we give our condolences to you on the martyrdom of your father Imam al-Hasan al-Askari. We give our condolences to you. A day that our Imam, he's remembering that when his father passed away, and how is it that when a son remembers the death of his father? We know that there was a son who remembered the death of his father, the martyrdom of his father, and he cried profusely till the end of his own life. And this was Imam Zayn al-Abidin, that every time he remembered his father, Imam al-Hussein, he would cry. Every time he would see a glass of water, he would cry for his father, Imam al-Hussein. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. اللهم بحق هذا المجلس العسكري اغفر ذنوبنا واستر عيوبنا وقضي حوائجنا واشفي مرضانا وارحم أمواتنا وعجل فرج مولانا صاحب العصر والزمان واجعلنا من أعوانه وأنصاره والمستشهدين بين يديه وتحت لوائه بحق محمد وآله الطاهرين.
يا حسين يا حسين 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 جب سے چادر چھینی ہے زینب کی تب سے ہر شام اداس ہے. جب سے چادر چھینی ہے زینب کی تب سے ہر شام اداس ہے. ہر علم پر ہے ایک ہاتھ کھلا, ہر علم پر ہے ایک ہاتھ کھلا, اس ردا کی تلاش ہے. جب سے چادر چھینی ہے زینب کی تب سے ہر شام اداس ہے. لاج رکھنا بلا کا طوفان ہے, یا الہی ردا نہ لوٹ کوئی. لاج رکھنا بلا کا طوفان ہے, یا الہی ردا نہ لوٹ کوئی. آ رہے ہیں وہ خیموں کی جانب, آ رہے ہیں وہ خیموں کی جانب, تو ہی زینب کا پاس ہے. جب سے چادر چھینی ہے زینب کی تب سے ہر شام اداس ہے. سے چادر چھینی ہے زینب کی تب سے ہر شام اداس. تہ خنجر ہے تو مگر پھر بھی جانے کیوں دیکھتا ہے خیموں کو. تہ خنجر ہے تو مگر پھر بھی جانے کیوں دیکھتا ہے خیموں کو. سرنا زینب کا بیردا ہوئے, سرنا زینب کا بیردا ہوئے, بس یہ حضرت کی آس ہے. جب سے چادر چھینی ہے زینب کی تب سے ہر شام اداس جلتے خیموں سے بیردا نکلی ہل گئی وہ زمین کرب و بلا جلتے خیموں سے بیردا نکلی ہل گئی وہ زمین کرب و بلا پشت پر جیسے کوئی میت ہو پشت پر جیسے کوئی میت ہو تڑپتی لاش عباس ہے جب سے چادر چھینی ہے زینب کی تب سے ہر شام چار سو شیولئی کا چہرہ ہے ڈرتی ہوں بابا سو نہیں سکتی چار سو شیولئی کا چہرہ ہے ڈرتی ہوں بابا سو نہیں سکتی مجھ سے پوچھو کہاں ہے در میرے مجھ سے پوچھو کہاں ہے در میرے خوں میں کیوں تر لباس ہے جب سے چادر چھینی ہے زینب کی تب سے ہر شام اداس ہے جب سے چادر چھینی ہے زینب کی تب سے ہر شام اداس ہے یا حسین یا حسین
السلام علیک یا رسول اللہ السلام علیک یا امیر المؤمنین السلام علیک یا فاطمة الزہراء یا سیدۃ النساء العالمین السلام علیک یا ابا محمد یا حسن بن علی المجتبی السلام علیک یا ابا عبد اللہ وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين السلام عليك يا قمر بني هاشم يا أبو الفضل العباس بن أمير المؤمنين السلام عليك يا أم المصائب يا زينب بنت أمير المؤمنين السلام عليكم يا شهداء كربلاء جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء يا معين الضعفاء والفقراء يا علي بن موسى رضا راضي بالقدر والقضاء السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والزمان الأمان 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 من فتنة الزمان يا سيدي أجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وزهورك السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته